anyone here like donuts? Hands up if you like a donut. A few hands in the room, maybe a Krispy Kreme, maybe a pink-coated sugar-glazed donuts with some sprinkles on top. Yes, okay, lots of hands in the room. Fantastic. Well, welcome. Welcome to all the donut lovers in the room. I'll introduce myself by saying my name's Dr. Anastasia Hronis, and I love a donut. There's nothing like a freshly baked donut when you bite into it and it's soft and fluffy on the inside, crisp on the outside, a bit of cinnamon and sugar on top. Mwah, chef's kiss. I love it. But look, I'm not here to tell you about how much I love donuts tonight. I'm a clinical psychologist with a keen interest in how our brain influences our day-to-day behaviours, often on a subconscious level. I'm interested in questions like, how is it that my brain actually knows that I like donuts? Why is it that when I walk past a bakery and I get that aroma of freshly baked goods drifting through the windows that I feel compelled to go in and buy some sweet treats? I think it's important for us to understand how the brain works and influences our day-to-day behaviours so that we can better understand ourselves. So let me introduce you to a little neurotransmitter, a chemical messenger in the brain that goes by the name of dopamine. Now, you might have heard of dopamine before. Dopamine's actually been trending, would you believe it? Dopamine's been in news headlines, and it's even had a few social media trends named after it. The dopamine detox, a dopamine fast, even one called anti-dopamine parenting. Dopamine also has a few nicknames. It goes by the molecule of more or the pleasure chemical. But let me tell you a bit about what dopamine does in the brain and body. It does a whole range of different things. For one, it helps regulate our kidney functions. It helps us store memories in the brain. It helps us manage and regulate our motor movements. But the thing that it's most famous for, if a neurotransmitter could be famous, is that it is involved in the experience of pleasure. Now, when I say pleasure, I'm talking about that short-term, instantaneous, in-the-moment gratification, that feeling that you get when you bite into the donut and dopamine is having a party in your brain going, yes, yum, this tastes delicious, keep eating. That's dopamine working its magic. But dopamine does something else very important. It's not just activated during the experience of pleasure. It's actually what motivates us to seek out pleasurable experiences again and again. If I were to walk out onto this stage with a big box of freshly baked donuts, the aroma drifting through the room, for those of you who put your hands up earlier and said you like donuts, I reckon dopamine would be firing in your brain. It would be telling you, oh, those donuts look and smell delicious. You know what? When Anastasia's finished her talk, you should go backstage, find her, and see if she'll give you one of those donuts to eat. That's dopamine motivating you to seek out something pleasurable. In this case, a donut. Now, from an evolutionary perspective, dopamine existed to help survival of the species. Life back in the days of the cavemen was hard. They had to hunt for food, hunt down lions and tigers, forage for berries. They had to build shelters and rub sticks together to create fires. It wasn't an easy life. And so dopamine served as a motivator for them to do these hard things so that they could survive. The problem is that in today's day and age, we don't actually have to work so hard simply to survive. I don't need to go out and hunt down a lion for food. I could order Uber Eats right now, and it'd probably be delivered by the time I finish this talk. But look, it's not just donuts and tasty treats that activate dopamine nowadays. We have a lot of things, and technology has a lot to account for here, but a lot of things that activate dopamine, sometimes in artificial or unhealthy ways. Things like alcohol, drugs, gambling, video games, online shopping, pornography, dating apps, and of course, social media. Now, you might be sitting there going, Anastasia, what's so wrong with a bit of pleasure in life? Why can't we have this dopamine activation? What's wrong with that? Well, in essence, nothing. But what happens to the brain when we get constant hits of dopamine is the brain becomes overstimulated. And it doesn't like that. It feels overwhelmed and it wants to re-regulate and recalibrate itself. Now, what does that mean for us in terms of practical things? Well, what it means is that you might end up not enjoying certain activities in your life that maybe you previously did. Let me give you an example. If you wake up in the morning, reach for your phone and scroll social media, dopamine. Say then you decide to play a game on your phone, dopamine. Say then you do a bit of online browsing, maybe a bit of online shopping, or you don't even necessarily buy anything, you just have a bit of a browse, dopamine. But then you go and you have lunch with your friend, and then you go and do an activity that you usually enjoy doing. You might find that you don't get as much joy and pleasure from the lunch with your friend and from the activity afterwards, because dopamine has already been activated in the morning through the screens. So, my first tip for you is if you want to feel a little bit better in life, avoid the morning scroll. Now, another problem that we find with dopamine-driven behaviours is that they're often in conflict with our values. Now, when I refer to values, I'm talking about the things that are at the core of what's important to us, the things that feel most meaningful and purposeful to the experiences that we have. Values can be said to be like a compass that guide and direct us in a particular direction in life. Now, often what happens with dopamine-driven behaviours is that they pull us in a direction that's not congruent with where values would like to take us. In the years of work that I've been doing with children, adolescents, and adults, trying to help them reconnect with their values, I've never once had anyone tell me that mindlessly scrolling on TikTok has helped them live out their true values in life. So tip number 2, identify your values and be wary of dopamine-driven behaviours that pull you in the opposite direction. Now, the third problem with these dopamine-driven behaviours as they apply to technology and social media is this. Social media makes us feel like we are connected to other people. It moderately satisfies our very primal and core need for connection. And because it moderately satisfies it, it means that we're not necessarily as driven to go out and seek it in real life, in the real world. If we suddenly had no internet and no phones and screens, we would be more motivated to go out in the world and seek that social connection. See, social media doesn't actually activate our primal need for social connection. It activates dopamine. It activates the reward pathways. But we all have a core need for connection. Back to the cavemen in those early prehistoric days, being part of the pack was protective. We needed the social group for safety. There was safety in numbers. If we were isolated or on the outside of the pack, we would be vulnerable to the elements or to being attacked by a threat in the environment. That's why feelings of isolation, disconnection, and loneliness hurt so much, because they activate a very primal need that we have attached to the need for safety. Now, thankfully, we actually have a hormone in the body that helps us connect with other people. Enter oxytocin. Now, oxytocin isn't quite as famous as dopamine, but it serves a very important function. You know when you have that warm and fuzzy feeling inside you when you give someone you love a hug? That's oxytocin working its magic. Now, oxytocin does have a couple of nicknames. It sometimes goes by the hug hormone or the love hormone. And the reason is because it helps us bond with other people. Oxytocin is activated when we feel excited by a sexual partner. It's activated when we're falling in love, and it's even activated during childbirth. Oxytocin is what helps new parents bond with their babies, and it helps lovers bond after a night of romance. But oxytocin does some other things other than just help us bond. It also helps facilitate trust. Now, there are some well-documented research studies that show that if you administer oxytocin via a nasal spray and people get an extra dose of it, they're actually more likely to give other people their money and also share very personal, private things about themselves and their lives with people they don't really know. The third thing oxytocin does is it helps regulate the nervous system. It actually helps us feel calm and reduces anxiety. So oxytocin helps us bond, it helps us build trust, and it helps us feel calm. 3 ticks for oxytocin. Now, why am I telling you all of this? Why is it important? Well, in my opinion, oxytocin hasn't had its moment to shine. It hasn't made the front page news, and it hasn't had social media trends named after it. Why? Because it's been overshadowed by dopamine. It's our job now to step away from dopamine-driven behaviours and lean into oxytocin-aligned actions. When you walk down the street, smile at the person coming the other direction. When the barista's making your coffee in the morning, perhaps start up a small chat or a conversation with someone when you're on the bus. Our brain and our body don't just need social connection, they are craving it. And given how important oxytocin is, and given that we are in a room full of people tonight with so much potential for social connection and bonding, I would like you to engage in a task in this very moment, and I would love for you to turn to the person next to you and connect, bond, give them something. It could be a handshake, it could be a high five, it could be a compliment, it could be a pat on the back. Don't give them your wallet, but give them something appropriate. Yes, aha, and the laughs. There it is. Oxytocin is spreading through the room as we speak. Now, if we, so much oxytocin going around, if we want to step away from our dopamine-driven behaviours, if we want to step away from this dopamine disconnection that we experience in our day-to-day life, then stay off screens in the morning, reconnect with your values, and give more hugs. I'm Dr. Anastasia Hronis. Thank you for listening. Thank you.